But welcome everybody. Be sure to hit the like button. Be sure to hit the subscribe button.
I remember in middle school when you felt self-conscious if you were the last one to go through puberty. That really went topsy-turvy, didn't it?
Sometimes the Hasbara, it's too much explaining yourself and it's too apologetic.
Be sure to hit the notifications bell.
I actually do believe Israel won't just bomb countless civilians.
Be sure to tweet this out. Be sure to put this up on your Facebook.
You have to be kind to people. Be kind to the guys in this mess in the first place.
Put this up on your Reddit.
Chile is a country.
Be sure to cut and paste, a link to this to go into your favorite Facebook chat group.
It's good to see so many normal people in here.
Now, spanking isn't just my deep, dark personal secret. It's America's deep, dark secret.
I've never seen it explained so simply anywhere.
Put this on WhatsApp. Put this on Telegram. Put this on your favorite messenger app.
Hello and welcome to the Untitled Anarchist Seagull channel. I'm your host, an Untitled Anarchist Seagull called Elise. And, well, it's been another fucking week, and I'm still experimenting with lighting. I think I've got some sort of interesting weird thing going on here. Let's see how it goes. In the meantime, let's see what we've got to look at. Yesterday we were looking at, ContraPoints was showing us that there was something she could do that was worse than being utterly silent about Gaza, namely opening her fucking mouth about Gaza. And so we all saw that. And I had a suggestion actually that let me see. We've got a couple of interesting options, actually. One of them... So one option is... This is something from Riveroon's suggestion, I think it was. This is a Matt Bernstein video about Maya Poet, the final boss of D-Trans grifters. If I remember correctly, she's the one that says that being trans is Hamas. But then we've also got Hassan Abi reacting to ContraPoints' wonderful post. Our old friend Ethan Klein says his haters are trembling. Very quietly, I haven't noticed them trembling. And then there were a couple of other interesting videos that I thought we might check out as well. We've got John Elmer on Dropside News talking about the resistance in Gaza and how they've gone about, basically they spent 20 years preparing for a situation like this, preparing to actually be able to hold the IDF to account during one of these genocidal onslaughts that they like so much. Then we've also got, let me see, the Jesse Single debate, and from Bonerlocks, Hamas sympathizer melts down in debate with Bonerlocks. And then another one that also looked interesting that I just sort of added. This is from Colonial Outcast, which is a channel I actually quite like. I like Greg Stoker. I enjoy his stuff. I think it's interesting. I think he has interesting analysis. But here we've got a conservative talking about how the left can reach the right, and yeah, the question is why the left should bother. But let me see, we got a short one to start out. This is from the reactionary grifters at Talk TV in Britain. Keir Starmer's first year in power. Oh no, wait. That's right, the Dark Ages. Woke bosses remove Robin Hood from Nottingham Building Society logo. I think we'll start out with this one. It's a short one. Hey Riveroon, how you doing? he lived in the flipping 12th
Welcome back.
century.
I'm still with Talk's international editor, Isabel Oakeshott.
This is
Isabel,
Talk TV.
you're familiar with them.
This is for the reactionary shitheads in Britain who are too talentless even for GB News. Talk TV is where you get, it is the dregs of right-wing media in Britain. Even GB News, you thought GB News was the dregs. I mean, and there's a very good case for it being the dregs because it is awful. And these days is kind of just doing advertorials for fucking Marks and Spencers and then threatening to sue anyone who says that that's a bit of an odd thing that they're doing and wonders why it is that they're doing advertorials for Marks and Spencer. But Talk TV is even worse. So here we go, and they're talking about the latest woke scandal, the woke building society in Nottingham that took off Robin Hood's face from their logo, which is a very woke thing to do, apparently. They replaced it with sort of a kind of a cursive N, which is, again, it's apparently, this is all very woke, apparently.
Legend of Robin Hood riding through the Glen with his band of merry men, stealing from robbing from the rich and giving to the poor. Great.
Yeah, usually the sort of thing Talk TV hates. Like, what, are they saying that being against robbing the rich and giving it to the poor is woke now? Like...
Guy was lived in the 12th century. There's a building society in Nottingham, for that was where he was from. Sherwood Forest, near Nottingham. He was the enemy of the Sheriff of Nottingham. So the Nottingham bill.
Thank you for. I'm glad he's introducing us to the concept of Robin Hood, because I'm sure most people have never heard of.
Building Society
Robin
has
Hood.
a little motif. It just says Nottingham Building Society. There's a little motif.
What's up with his
we're going
hair?
to show it now of a kind of cartoon version of Robin Hood. A few green lines, and we'll show it in a second. They've axed that because Robin Hood is not inclusive enough.
Like, inclusive of what? Like, inclusive of, I guess, rich people? What? Like, what?
What?
Are you serious?
No, and the answer is no, he's not. They're just making this shit up. They are just literally making this shit up.
I'm serious. I'm serious. It's
like neither of them can even handle this premise because it just makes so fucking little sense.
12th century.
Yeah. I mean, what do they expect? What do they expect?
I mean, a lot of bad stuff was happening then, guys. I mean, you know.
Like, okay, so this is the original. You have Robin Hood, kind of. It also looks a little bit like, it's like it was designed by the Girl Scout Cookies people a little bit. And now there's a sort of a cursive E-N. And apparently, this is what right-wingers in Britain decided to get very angry about.
Where do we begin with those days? Those were dark days. Those were pretty much literally the Dark Ages coming into the medieval ages.
Okay, I just have to do some pedantry here because, like, literally the Dark Ages is a term, a deprecated term, I should note, for the Middle Ages. Like, literally, that is the Middle Ages. In fact, it's actually kind of the late Middle Ages. Only a couple more 100 years left of them. Like, well, so what? Oh, this is Isabel Oakeshott, who is the international editor, who's talking about this because apparently, I guess, Nottinghamshire is a different country? Or because nobody else could be roped into it, they just cornered her with a fucking camera and said, okay, you're going to pretend to be angry about this now.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, this is what the bosses of this... By the way, if you got your money in the Nottingham Building Society, everyone, take it out as a protest. This is, again, Isabel, this is it. Stop this madness. This is insanity. So the boss...
Like... you realize you've got the graphic here showing what we're talking about. It's just a fucking rebrand. Are you gonna get pissed? They use a sans serif font too, cause serifs apparently aren't woke anymore, or something like. This is Talk TV.
Of this crazed company, this is what they've said. We've mixed our rich history with a modern twist. We want to reflect society as it is today. For us, that means championing inclusivity and celebrating financial diversity.
Okay, like financial diversity. So that sounds like a neat way of saying inequality, actually. Like, this reminds me of an interpreting gig I was on a very long time ago with these country club motherfuckers, and one was like, I think it's lovely that we've got our mansions right next to these poor people's houses. It's very inclusive. Yeah, I guess that's financial diversity or something, like, but, like, why are they getting mad about this? Like, that is just them celebrating economic inequality as far as I can tell, and I don't think Talk TV has a fundamental... Maybe they do. Maybe we were wrong. Maybe they're like accidentally communists now.
Oh, give me a break. Just start doing some banking, how about? And
I have a feeling that the Building Society probably does a fair bit of banking as well. Like, is that the argument here? Is that the objection, that they're not doing enough banking because they've got marketing people and the marketing people decided to do a rebrand? Like, okay.
What about that weird N on their Nottingham Building Society thing? Is that new? I mean, what's the thinking
Yes, it
behind
is
that?
fucking new. Like, did she just get roped into this at the last minute? That she doesn't, like, it's right there. That is literally the new thing. It's just a fucking squiggly N.
Looking like a piece of spaghetti. Am I missing something here? Kev, I do have some concerns about this.
She has concerns. Let's hear about her concerns. I'm sure they are very serious concerns that very normal people would share.
Which is that there are so many things for us to get wound up about that I think we need to be...
You're the ones who chose to get wound up about this. You literally chose to have this segment.
Bit careful of our mental health here.
Yeah.
There are just so many things that you and I could get our blood pressure going too high over.
Like, I don't even think that she's entirely committed to this whole fucking premise. Like, here she is just actually saying, she's actually literally saying, why are we doing this bullshit? That is basically what she just said. And yes, why are you doing this bullshit? It makes no fucking sense. Even from a right-wing slop perspective.
Maybe we just have to let these absolute muppets get on with their diverse and inclusive, weirdo, wacky spaghetti N bank.
Weirdo, wacky spaghetti N bank. Well, I mean, so she's basically just shut down his entire segment here. This is 3 minutes into it, and she's already saying, why are we doing this bullshit? On a channel that is dedicated to bullshit that you could ask that literally every single time that they open their mouths about.
To actually deal with the details here, though, I mean,
what
does inclusive actually mean? I don't really get it. There's no, think about Robin Hood, there's no inclusivity involved. What does that mean? You mean the problem with Robin Hood is that it excludes everyone who doesn't live among a band of merry men who reside in Sherwood Forest.
Yeah, I'm sure that's what they meant. I'm sure that that's exactly what they were going for. They were like, the problem with our building society is we only get deposits for people who live in Sherwood Forest with their merry men, and we got to expand beyond that. I mean, Nottingham's a fairly big place, and you got fucking Lincolnshire nearby. I don't even think that was actually a Nottinghamshire accent, but like, Okay.
So if you're not a part of that gang, you're excluded, and that's all wrong.
Yeah, very clearly that's what they meant.
I mean, come to think of it, why is it called Nottingham? Doesn't that exclude people from up north? Doesn't that...
I thought Nottingham was up north. Like, Nottingham is up north, I would think, to... like, I mean, it's north of Edgware, and usually by London standards, that counts as the north, if you're north of Edgware. Edgware is, like, just on the outskirts of London. You get past Stevenage, which is where all the Stevens are produced and stored until they are used. And through Edgware, and you're in the north.
Exclude people from London? I mean, come on, guys, why are you calling yourself...
London isn't the north, though.
Nottingham. I'm feeling left out here. You know, I live in Oxfordshire. I live in London. I don't want to bank with a bank and a building society that's called Nottingham. That's not properly inclusive.
Like, okay.
Exactly right. I mean, it's just insanity. You know.
What? Okay, and what the hell's happening to her eyeliner? It's like it was only partially applied.
This corporate wokery is one of the scourges of our time. All these companies.
But where's the woke? Where's the fucking woke?
That are sort of second guessing the public, you know. So that
yeah, because it was the public. You have to understand the way the Nottinghamshire Building Society decided on their logo is that there was an election. They had a vote. It was a referendum in Nottinghamshire, or something. I don't know. Like, what do you mean second guessing? The public didn't get to make this choice in the first place.
There are idiots working for the squiggly Ottingham Building Society. I think, by the way, the squiggly N is they're not very literate. They don't really know how to do ends or something like that. But there are idiots within the realms of that absurd woke company.
I mean, I'm sure we're all shocked that there's also ableism going on here, but it's like, I mean, at the same time, like, what the hell even is this? This is... I mean, this is just such an excellent example of right-wing slop. These assholes just pretend to be angry over, like, this doesn't even make sense. Did they choose this? Or did somebody say to them, okay, you've got to pretend to be pissed off about this? Because neither of them seem terribly, like, committed to this. Because, like, you can't even go off on a rant about it because there is absolutely nothing woke about anything in this.
Decided that Robin Hood is offensive to people. I mean, you know,
sure
give me a small break. And on another issue, this is you love this one. A guy got sacked from a factory, right? And he's suing them for wrongful dismissal and unfair treatment while he was at work. You know, I feel sorry for him if that.
Well, we're already moving on, apparently.
Case is justified, but basically he's been given clearance by a judge to sue the company that he worked for sexual harassment because his foreman used to call him bald.
Well, I imagine it's probably more than that, but I mean, it's interesting that they've already just moved on from this. Like, are they coming back to this at all?
Because he indeed is bald. He used to call him a bald, I won't say the second word, but you can work it out. A judge has decided that represents sexual harassment because baldness is a condition normally associated with men.
Well,
what a complete and utter balderdash.
Like, okay, so they've just moved on. That's so cute, they made a pun.
Unfortunately, a minority of women also suffer from hair loss in middle and late age, and I don't know where to go with this, Kev. It's getting late on a Thursday night. I'm not finding the words to articulate, and why do you even need to explain to anyone that labelling someone a bald whatever is not really sexual harassment, whatever it is, sex.
Okay. So that has. There's a start. I think. I want to hear about how Ethan Klein's haters are trembling now. Because I'm sure that's exactly what's happening. I haven't seen any signs of it, but.
Everybody, listen up. It's July 7th, 2025, and we're back. And first of all, breaking news. Hold the applause. Thank you, Ian. Right now, it is.
Going back and forth with them, that's conversing.
No, it's been a war. Because Taylor Lorenz thinks that she can just fucking say whatever she wants about me. And
yeah, but nobody takes her
she needs to understand. It's just horrible writing.
It's okay, so now apparently he's got beef with Taylor Lorenz.
And it's all not true. It's all like super bad faith. Very. I mean, I can see why these people are no longer employed by reputable institutions. They're utterly inept. Dude, can you imagine posting this article in like, where did Cat work? Fucking New York Times or the New York Times? Like the editor should fucking commit Sabuku or whatever.
Sabuku?
Did you say Sudoku?
That's a funny one because it's I said Sabuku.
Which is also wrong. It's seppuku. But okay.
But what's the name of the game?
Sudoku.
Yeah, Sudoku. They committed Sudoku.
So this is apparently about how misogynistic he is.
It's funny how you said the word wrong.
No, but the joke, if I said it right,
no,
committing Sabuku.
It wasn't that funny. It was funnier.
What?
Where is the joke, actually, Ethan? I find it very interesting that he's apparently decided to sort of zero in on the same people that fucking libs of TikTok doesn't like. Okay.
Kids without their parents knowing, how she's going into their house without the parents.
Okay, this is not about things that I really was looking to talk about in the context of fucking Ethan Klein, so I think we will move on. We're gonna look at How the Left Can Reach the Right, a Conservative's Guide. And
what up, family? Welcome to...
And the question fundamentally is why?
The podcast.
Like, I mean, fundamentally, the issue with this, it's like, okay, if right-wingers realize that being on the right wing is full of shit and they don't want to have anything to do with it, and they decide maybe that we're right and they want to actually work with us instead, I mean, that's one thing. But the idea of, like, dedicating a significant amount of energy to trying to recruit reactionaries when that's actually already a fairly small number of people, and only a small number of them are going to come over to us, and then who are you going to be axing? Who are you going to be, like, writing off in order to make them comfortable? That, to me, is the fundamental question with this sort of thing. I haven't watched this. Mark Wayne is not actually, like, my favorite part of Colonial Outcasts. I watched that for Greg Stoker. But this showed up in my recommendations, and I'm curious what the argument here is going to be.
Hoping your conservative uncle will actually check out today and listen to some perspective from another conservative that joined us for this episode.
Which conservative, though?
I'd like to point out that our merch store is finally open. Thank you for being patient. We are going to use the revenue from that to expand our operations, hopefully hire some staff so we can actually be a professional journalist entity. So go check out the merch, link in the description, and we hope you like what you see. If not, we're just glad you're here. To get straight to the agenda, I have two main goals of this episode. Putting the final nail in the coffin of Zionism and how the left can appeal to conservatives for...
Like, okay, fuck Zionism, good, but, like, why do we need to appeal to conservatives? I mean, fuck talking about how. If you're gonna talk about how, the first thing you need to talk about is, like, why we should bother.
Revolutionary action. Ironically, we've brought on a conservative veteran who authored and indexed an extensive guidebook on how to crush Zionist arguments, debating points, red herrings, and all of its other deceptive talking points that we have heard tirelessly throughout this past 18 months as we watched the genocide unfold. And this guidebook will be uploaded onto our Patreon.
Who is this guy? I'm already a bit worried, because when you hear right-wing conservative who's also claims to be anti-Zionist, that often tends to indicate that they're actually a really dodgy fucker. But I haven't seen who it is
Tired
yet.
of debating it. I am tired of arguing with it. I am tired of arguing with unhinged, psychotic, and sociopathic Zionists over basic points of humanity that all this should be embraced no matter what our ideology is. We've also brought on Mia, who is a friend of the podcast and advocate for Palestine's right to liberation and an anti-ICE activist. My veteran comrade here coached Mia in using this guidebook to debate a Zionist, actually. So thanks for coming on, y'all. How y'all doing?
Tired.
I feel you.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming on, Manny. Good to see you, man. It's been a while since you and I have been on camera.
We've been kind of working in the background. I'm a little tired, but I have been on the airwaves tackling everything from fucking soundbite to argument styles that you have to put a line certain media to combat Zionist arguments to justify. I mean, we've all seen the swarm of the same workup that we saw as kids during the Iraq War. Trying to gear people to go up for the Iranian, trying to fight Iran. But thank God my faith in humanity is restored no matter what political ideologies you follow. The amount of Americans that say no. Yeah, people try to cover shit about war, and 400,000 people say no. That is a big shift.
It's a good sign, and exactly. And we're gonna address why we need to focus on that indicator, I guess, is the best word to call it. So for the past year, I've been trying to emphasize a few strategies with our audience and how to expand and broaden the scope of this revolutionary body that has grown exponentially in the wake.
Okay, I mean, expanding and broadening the scope, cool, but like, why are we trying to specifically attract right-wingers? Like, why should that be a focus of our activities?
Key among those strategies is that we need to start reaching out to conservatives. And the reason why is simple. It's math. And we all will be either dead or enslaved within a corporate feudalist dystopian future by the end of the decade if we don't.
But the problem is the reason not to is math. Because, again, you're talking about a relatively small group, actually, like the minority, if you look at the polls in the U.S., and then the ones who will come over to, like, change their views on their own steam are a minority within that. So why are we focusing on them? I mean, the math is, like, literally not the argument for it.
Around 37% of Americans identify as conservative.
Yeah, exactly. That's the point. That is actually you will find a minority.
And this demographic has always been a key element in any revolution because to get conservatives on board with revolution means that we have accomplished the goal.
Okay, citation needed here. Like, show me where, okay, first of all, what is the demographic we're talking about? Like, you've just listed, say, 37% of the population, according to an unspecified poll, identify themselves as conservative. Okay, but what's the demographic there? Like, I mean, I can tell you, it tends to skew white, it tends to skew rich. You're talking about people who are whiter and have more money than most people. And, yeah. So, like, what revolutions are you talking about that specifically were won because the better-offs joined them, better-off reactionaries joined them?
Appealing to people beyond ideological lines. It is always a healthy sign that a revolutionary storm is brewing across the board because it reflects a deep desire for hard material change instead of just an academic or intellectual movement driven by purist ideals. When conservatives join in, it signals that the existing system has failed, not just the...
Oh, well, yeah, but what exactly are they joining in for, though? What are they doing? Like, I mean, what are they joining in with? You're just kind of saying that they're getting involved? Often, when you see conservatives, when you see right-wingers join in, as he puts it, it's because they're trying to ensure that the revolution does not happen. They're trying to make sure they know that the system that exists is not going to last, and they want to make sure that whatever comes next is going to be something they're okay with.
Social justice advocates, but also those who once believed in preserving it. Their involvement transforms revolution from a niche uprising into a broad-based, cross-cultural mandate for real structural transformation.
But how? Who? It sounds like he's quoting something here. But, like, the whole point of conservatives is they're opposed to structural transformation. Like, that is kind of a very big thing. That's, like, that's why they're called conservatives and not, like, structural transformatives.
But I still get some pushback in the comment section that ranges from statements like, it can't be done, I'll never talk to them because they're all too steeped in propaganda, or they'll say they haven't had any success and they need further guidance on how to do that.
Wait, so nobody's saying it's a nonsensical thing that that numerically it makes no sense, it's a waste of time. There are much larger groups of people who are much more likely to be on board with fundamental transformation of the society, and people who are actually pretty okay with the status quo are not people that we would really be using our energy efficiently by trying to recruit.
That's what this episode is going to be about. Well, first of all, it can be done. I know this because I've done it. I've brought conservatives over, but even more importantly, Fred Hampton of the Black Panthers did it, which is how the Rainbow Coalition in Chicago...
Well, except that the thing is, the people that... Okay, this is actually a misrepresentation of what he did. They're talking here about... What was the name of that group? It wasn't... God, yeah, I forget their name, but they used the Confederate flag, and so this is why they're often thought of incorrectly as being a right-wing group. It turned out they were using it not because they believed in the Confederate flag, they said they were doing it to get attention, and one of the first things that Fred Hampton convinced them to do was to drop that fucking flag, because it wasn't what they were about. So, I mean, this is not a good example of what he's talking about, but it is one that is often trotted out by people who either don't know the history or hope others don't.
Was formed, and why the FBI designated him as their top priority target to assassinate. The real question y'all should be asking yourselves is, can you match up to Fred Hampton and his level of revolutionary outreach? It's a high bar, family, but I believe you can do it.
Yeah, I mean, literally, this is nonsense already. I've heard fucking Caleb Muppet make the same inaccurate argument. Like, it entirely rests on pretending that these people were using the Confederate flag out of conviction, and also just completely ignoring the fact that one of the very first things that, fruits of working together with these guys whose name I'm totally blanking on, was to get them to drop that flag.
And to prove to you that conservatives can be reached and can join in solidarity against...
Like, this is literally not an example of that, is the thing to remember.
Not only Zionism, for Palestine's liberation, but also against the entire establishment of oligarchical power. We've brought on a conservative who's not only been fighting for Palestine and against Zionism, but also against the neoliberal, neocon, bipartisan, corporate, purple, MAGA hybrid operating under the alias of the Democratic and Republican Party. Thanks for coming on. Manny, you helped Mia in preparing for a debate with the Zionists.
Okay, who is this guy other than Manny? The name is not ringing a bell. Does it say what his name is? Okay, we've got his Patreon apparently here. So let's check that out. Okay. We have other writings of his anywhere? Like, I mean, the fact that he... also, let me just say, the fact that he still apparently is a reactionary is also an argument against this strategy working. He hasn't brought a right-winger over. Brought a right-wing over to our side. He has literally just brought a right-winger onto the show. I mean, okay, so this is... Okay, we're already starting out with some nonsense.
Using this very thorough index guidebook that you put together using your skill sets and using your experience in baiting Zionists and also your journey out of Zionism yourself. Just like me.
I immediately have my doubts about anyone, like, with the exception of people who are oppressed by Zionism, i.e. like Palestinians, primarily, who have ventured out of Zionism but have not ventured out of reaction. Like, where Zionism is the only reactionary thing that they have actually decided to abandon. That's just kind of rings some alarm bells.
A Christian nationalist, conservative, evangelical Zionist before I went to Palestine at the age of 18. When I left Palestine, I was radical. I became an anarchist. I saw Palestinians as my family that I will fight to the death for, to the day I die. First of all, like Mia, like when you were being coached by Manny, what was the biggest evolution of thought process that you changed about how you approached debating Zionism?
Well, one of the main things was...
I mean, surely one of the first things is, why the fuck are you debating them? Like, why do that? Why bother with that? What good comes of it? We know that these reactionaries will waste our time, and they are going to just say a bunch of racist bullshit, and they will lie a lot. That's kind of how it works. And sometimes they believe the lies, and sometimes they don't. Like, fuck them. Why debate them?
Manny was telling me how to categorize people based on their argument styles, based on the topics that they chose. I had never even considered any of that. And now that I think about how right-wing activists are affecting our education system and taking away things like emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence is a huge thing. Being able to read how somebody thinks and feels and manipulation tactics, that's
like this whole thing would make a hell of a lot more sense if the guy they brought on was a former right-winger. Okay? The fact that he isn't says that there's something about this that was kind of pointless.
Big deal, being able to kind of defend yourself, like mentally and emotionally.
Start asking myself about our compromise. Prior to this Whisper Project 2025, one of the other things, humanity.
Still fear, they're narco-terrorists. Using the exact same playbook from the past year and a half in justifying the extermination of Palestinians on now with ICE, with migrants. It's the same dehumanizing propaganda media blitzkrieg where people are they're rolling out
a blitzkrieg. A blitzkrieg.
Label that migrants are, instead of being terrorists, they're criminals, they're rapists, they're drug.
Although, like, literally, they have declared Tren de Aragua, which is as an organization, has by all accounts, other than like right-wing bullshit, been dismantled at the source a long time ago now, and does not really exist for all intents and purposes. They have been labeled a terrorist organization.
To instill fear, they're narco-terrorists.
Based on nothing.
Yeah, Laura Loomer's comment of, oh, now we can feed, 65 million people to the alligators. I was like, this is probably the same shit that Zionists talk about when they talk about Palestinians. They're like, oh, 1 million people in Gaza, yeah.
I mean, we know they talk this way about them.
So when I checked on that, the reason, one of the reasons that brought me over from being supporting candidates when I found out the extent of how very anti-American they were and being more pro-Israel and
anti-American. Like, see, here's where we already run into problems. Because the idea is that supposedly, like, supporting Israel is somehow anti-American. Well, what does that mean? Like, if we're talking about against the interests of the U.S. ruling class, then obviously it's not. The ruling class are doing well. The ruling class are supporting this, actually, and they are making a shitload of money off of it. Obviously, this is not harming American interests, which is a term that just means the interests of the ruling class. Like, there is this conflict of... This is precisely why Like, somebody who has decided not to be Zionist anymore, but has still decided to be a reactionary in other ways, it is dodgy as hell. Because this is already bad analysis. This is already very dodgy analysis, and the thing is, if you're going to try to make sense out of this, first of all, it means exonerating the U.S., like just pretending U.S. imperialism doesn't exist, or it's good. Like, a lot of the people who will take this line will be like, well, the rest of the time the U.S. is promoting freedom and democracy. And it's like, no, they fucking aren't. Like, that isn't what happens. That's not what they're doing. And the thing is, if you're going to try to explain this, you literally cannot rely on material arguments. Because on material arguments, you would have to concede that the majority of the material power in this situation that is directly affected by what goes on in the Middle East, that's like the oil and gas industry and the arms industry, and they're doing great off of this. They're enjoying it. Actually, they're kind of cool with this because it's making them a shitload of money. And it's also very helpful, even to the extent that this is interfering with oil coming out of the ground. That's actually kind of handy because U.S. economic rivals depend on that oil more than the U.S. does. Like, so, yeah, I mean, so you have to sort of move away from any kind of material analysis, anything that is grounded in reality, and you end up getting into dodgy fucking conspiracy territory.
That's a bit of a pro-non-humanity, I want you to coin that, is that you see there's things that you do to protect the constitutional republic, right? And then there are actions in which your government is acting in the service and interests of a foreign government, and you begin to recognize when your government and their laws are compromised.
See, here, I mean, this is what I'm talking about here.
Prior to this, a whisper of Project 2025, one of the other things outside of me being, growing up pro-life, right? Understanding that you don't have women, you don't justify the killing of women and children, is seeing how they separated children in ICE detention centers. When you understand how deep the ICE detention centers go with how the cartels are trained to use kids as mules. I grew up between Chicago and Florida. Those are very, very well-known gang-associated, cartel-associated, and human trafficking areas of the U.S. outside of Los Angeles, New York, and some countries.
Like, okay, so what does this have to do with anything, though?
These politicians lie to the teeth and try to extract the same type of soul and same lives out of the same Congress. It started making me put my Thomas Massey and hate cap on and start asking myself, where is the respect for our Constitution? Where is the respect for humanity?
And the answer is there's never been any of that, and the Constitution sucks shit.
Everyone, this is a nation of immigrants. When I see that our current president has, and I know that we're taking a hit here, when I see that our current president, all of his former spouses were from another country.
Like, who cares, though?
Right. Color or origin, right? And then I see that his own mother was an immigrant from Scotland. They probably came during post-famine, right? We know Ireland, Scotland were impacted during.
His mother did not come during the famine. Unless his mother is like 150, 200 years old, she did not come during the fucking famine. What he's talking about is the Great Hunger in Ireland, which was in the 1840s. Trump's mom was not involved in that. Like, she did not come fleeing that, unless she is, 200 years old.
When I see people who were the children of immigrants of a certain color, very parallel between Donald Trump and Netanyahu in Israel, we see that connection. Mm-hmm. Netanyahu's family immigrated from Poland or wherever, right?
They from Philly, actually.
They adopt the same racist ideology that even as a conservative, you go, that doesn't fucking make sense because you're an immigrant too.
That's because the ideology is white supremacism.
And me being part of my mom's American, I come from a family of immigrants from my dad's side, right? So it begins to make you question how you're raised and what your values are. All around here, around the foundation grounds, we see these very people claiming to have the same values that you do, regardless of what religion, what political leaning. When their ability to acknowledge whether it's humanity's gone out the window, and you see their blatant ability to lie, the idea of make America great again. But your leader bends over for a foreign power.
No, but he doesn't, though. And in fact, I mean, one of the interesting things is that it actually appears that Trump has probably put somewhat more pressure, not a whole lot, on Israel than, well, certainly than Biden did. I mean, because Biden put zero pressure. Like, actually, we have both top Biden officials and top Israeli officials both agreeing that he did not at any point put any pressure on Israel, that he actually at one point advised Israel not to let aid in, like U.S. aid, aid that had actually specifically been sent by the U.S. We have, like, the Israeli ambassador to the U.S. at the time saying that it was unusual what a free hand they got. And if you look at the way the aggression against Iran went down and the U.S. involvement in it, it really does kind of look like the U.S. was trying, like Trump was trying to find a way to make it end quickly, not because it was successful, to pretend that it was successful, because Israel, among other things, Israel was getting wrecked. Like, so go in there, have a sort of mostly symbolic bombing raid, claim victory, even though anyone who knows anything about it has said there's no way that didn't happen, and use that in order to convince Israel to stop provoking Iran and getting their asses kicked. So, I mean, if anything, it appears really more like, actually, there's more pressure coming from the White House now than last year. But the idea that this is bending over to a foreign power, let's remember, that would collapse if any U.S. president were to say, just cut off their military aid, which is, like, just required by law, not that that matters. You have to actually explain that. You have to come up with some sort of plausible explanation for why that would be, because obviously Israel is totally dependent on the U.S. They're more dependent on the U.S. than they were, like, 2 years ago at this point, because they keep on just going through all of their ammunition the minute they get their hands on it. They're falling apart at the seams. So, like, what do you think is going on there?
Right. But that when you see these happening, it doesn't, as Dan Smith said, doesn't pass the basic smell test. Meaning a right person. When you see your leaders justify the murder of women and children, the displacement and starvation of many.
Like, do you realize that this is not the first time they're doing that? What?
But they don't acknowledge, this ties to the ICE and ties to Israel at the same time, they don't acknowledge that we are the cause of the illegal immigration coming to our country, because the largest communities of immigrants came from either a past war or an illegal police action. Think Vietnam, my grandfather was in Vietnam. Think Mexico, when we had three-letter agencies playing with destabilizing Mexican democracy. When we
I mean, like, literally, the minute you start to acknowledge that, though, again, the whole idea that there's some sort of weird special thing going on with the U.S. and Israel begins to make no fucking sense. Because the minute you start acknowledging that, yeah, the U.S. has been trying to prevent democracy all over the world and has supported some of the biggest mass murderers on the planet in an effort to prevent democracy, then you run into a problem, because that's all the U.S. is doing with in Palestine as well.
Why so many people from the Middle East are here, Pakistan, Afghanistan, Iraq. We were involved in every direct action, all of it ties to Israel, all of it ties to Gaza. So when I have a leader, a Republican leader, telling me that they're for the Constitution, but they're also for this creating the same style of military action that creates the chaos that leads to illegal immigration, you have to question the cycle of decision-making at the top highest echelons of leadership, putting my Marine Corps hat on.
Right, well, and yes, okay, and so where do you go from there, though?
If the orders don't make fucking sense.
But they do make sense. They make sense if you just if you stop trying to find a benign motive for it. If you acknowledge that all of this is about profit, that all of it is about power projection, that all of it is about preventing independent development, then it all makes fucking sense. I mean, it isn't hard. You just have to not assume that the motives must be benign.
The policies of passing don't look like they're supposed to make sense, but every action you take for violating the Constitution and the laws they claim to uphold and put in place, then you have to question the entire structure of everything that's in place at the same time.
Okay, yes, I agree. You do absolutely have to question the structure, and you have to start realizing that actually law doesn't fucking make a difference, doesn't mean shit. Law either, if to the extent that law is in any way getting in the way of the interests of the ruling class, of the people who actually own the means of human survival and control it, then the law will just fucking take a shit. Then the Constitution doesn't matter. I mean, we're seeing it right now with, intellectual property law. It's been very interesting with these, fucking AI grifters who are out there admitting, yeah, if we follow existing intellectual property law, our fucking LLMs don't work. And so the idea is that obviously then intellectual property law just needs to die. Ja, nee, das hat eher mit dem Norwegischen zu tun.
And as we've established on this podcast multiple times, is the reason why we are seeing this repeat of the playbook out of Third Reich and stoking on xenophobia and this dehumanization of migrants for the sake of creating this police state. It is not because they truly care about, undocumented immigrants in this country. They're trying to justify a police state to control the working class.
Yes, but the thing is, those things are actually related, though. Because the thing is, the whole system of immigration restrictions is designed to create a class of workers who can be hyper-exploited, and thus turned against the interests of their class as a whole, and used to push wages down across the board. Literally, that is the point of it. Those things aren't unrelated, those aren't separate things. That is just one instance of the overall pattern.
On behalf of Wall Street. See, everything being done, this jackbooted approach by sending ICE agents into neighborhoods, terrorizing families.
Which, it's worth noting, is actually less effective. I mean, that's the thing. Deportations are actually down. Arrests by ICE are actually down. Because Trump needs, if he does not, pound his fist on something, if he isn't beating his chest and doing things in an over-the-top, sort of very visible, very public way, then as far as he's concerned, it doesn't exist or something. And the thing is, because you've got this high visibility, because it's all done in such a bombastic way, because it's being done so publicly, it means it is easier to organize resistance. It is easier to point out why resistance needs to be organized to it, and it is easier to organize that resistance. If you do it quietly, the way Democrats do for the most part, then it is actually a harder target. And aside from that, when Democrats are doing it, they're doing it quietly, and liberals kind of tune out, and they rebrunch, and they kind of forget about it. The concentration camps are still there. Democrats are building more and more of them as well, but suddenly, it's out of sight, out of mind. So this is actually counterproductive. This is less effective precisely because it engenders such resistance.
blasting down a door with a shape charge to, just to send a message. The provocative nature of these ICE raids, going into courthouses, going into high schools, separating a mother who just gave birth, arresting her and detaining her right after she gives birth. The reason why they're provocative is very purposeful, is to instoke fear of the state. Fear.
Yeah, and this is precisely also why it doesn't work. I mean, we have to also keep that in mind. In fact, it doesn't work on a whole other level. The ICE agents, their recruiting and their retention are both completely fucked. Have been for years, because this sticks with people, and people don't just fear these guys; they hate them, and it becomes something that you have to hide if you work for ICE, because people will not like you if you say you work for ICE, and so the result is they have trouble with retention and recruitment. Like, this is actually, I mean, that is the thing. This is actually counterproductive from the point of view of repression, because there's more resistance as a result, because it's so visible. Like, liberals can't tune it out.
Of state power. And as we've established, this is the height of class antagonism. It's basically the elite saying, hey, we're the rulers now, you are the subjects, and you will do what we say, because look at what we're capable of, and we'll get away with it because we can use making America safe again as our new, carte blanche approach. So, Manny, you are a former Marine. You were active duty for 3 years, 4 years reserve. You transferred to the private sector, where you worked between a number of industries that deal with the current events, I guess, that we're facing right now. So,
what does that mean? What are industries that deal with current events that we're facing right now? Like, are we talking a mercenary company? I mean, that would be a fairly common follow-on job for an ex-Marine.
You were once a Zionist yourself, but more like a boilerplate Zionist. You grew up in a Christian upbringing, same as me, same story as me, and you're conservative. But over the course of the years, you saw the holes in the Zionist logic, and
like, is that really it though? I mean, I don't want to put too much emphasis on, like, he's speaking off the cuff here. But is it really a matter of seeing the holes in the logic? Or is it a matter of seeing, holy shit, what they're doing is horrible, what they're saying is horrible, it's a horrible ideology, it sucks shit. It seems odd to talk about it in the terms of, like, seeing the holes in their logic. Like, who gives a fuck if their logic is perfect? What they're doing is awful.
You came to this side of the fence. Can you explain that journey a little bit?
Sure. So I will say my first questions started when I was 12. I went to an evangelical church growing up, where they use the King James Version of the Bible, which is a derivative of the Schofield Bible. I would ask questions like, if this is the seed of the question, we'll jump to where we are in the future right now, where we are in the present day now. I question at 12, I go, why are you telling me that I'm supposed to be subservient and every third word is Israel? I wouldn't understand the echoes and parallels that would have at 34.
Well, I mean, because what the fucking Bible, even in King James's time, was talking about when they were talking about Israel, is not the same thing as Israel, the fucking, regime that was set up in 1948. Those are very different things. In fact, Israel, for much of the Bible, many of the times, is a guy. It's just another name for, Joshua?
From 12, I left. We still had some
Joseph. It was one of the fucking J names.
Your religious core as a kid is something that's part of your moral habits. It's part of helps dictate your decision making and your moral compass, what you allow yourself to justify, and you take that into the service, right? So over time, as I've traveled, I've lived in places like the West Coast, San Diego, I've lived in Miami as an adult. I knew people who were Israeli, but I also knew people who were Palestinian. But because of my part of that religious upbringing, and the question, I've met people that die hard believe that Jews are God's chosen people. It's hands down been told to me when I, as a child. The deprogramming it took was, I think, what accelerated my deprogramming for living in a balance between...
See, and the other one that always gets me, when people are, like, hung up on that, which also, apart from everything else, just misunderstands what that ever meant. But, I mean, that to me is always kind of a red flag. Especially when you have this combination of decided that Zionism sucks, but, like, right-wing ideology doesn't, in general.
I will say, I don't believe, I'm not going to say I don't believe in the two-state solution, but believing that Israel was just surrounded by terrorist countries was the fact that I became friends with people from Afghanistan. I became friends with people from Iraq. I met people who were from Yemen. I met people from Sudan. And I've heard so many of their stories, because when you work in industries like I've worked in, cross consulting, and you worked in public and private sector, I have friends from Iran, and you begin to hear their side of the story, and you learn little things like in Iraq that people used to have villas and free healthcare before we went in and tore the country apart. You meet people who are from the other side of the fence that talk about...
I mean, that is, it's worth noting true. Like, what, under, like, in the 1980s, Iraq had, like, one of the highest living standards, if not the highest living standard in the region. Like, their universities were the best in the Arab world, and their hospitals as well. Like, people who could afford to do it in the region would send their kids to Iraqi universities and their parents to Iraqi hospitals.
Afghanistan in the 70s isn't what it is now.
Yeah.
And that it's largely tied to our meddling. When you're have any Hispanic,
like, almost entirely, you could say,
background where you know the U.S. or Europe has been involved, they've always been involved in regime change. You don't need to be a political expert. It's not top secret information. When you look at my studies and going to school with kids from the Gulf, understanding that they don't like the monarchies that we put in place, Jordan, Saudi Arabia. And when you start to understand the threads that
yeah, I mean, but here's the thing. This is where also some of this idea of, like, the tail wagging the dog ought to fall apart, too, because you look at the polls, what he's saying is very true. Like, if people in the region do not like the dictatorships the U.S. has propped up to rule over them. They also just do not like the U.S. because the U.S. plays this role in preventing any kind of democratic change in the area and promoting these extremely corrupt regimes that sell off their resources to U.S. companies for pennies, and they don't get anything out of it. And there's literally one exception to that. The Jewish Israeli population is the only segment of the population of that entire region that is overwhelmingly pro-US. Like, literally, if democracy broke out in the rest of the region, the US would just be kicked out. The only friend that they would have would be Israel. Like, that matters. It is the one place that is the most stable base for power projection that the U.S. has, because there is a popular base for the U.S. to be there, as opposed to everywhere else they're dealing with hostile populations that don't want them there because they hate what the U.S. does to them.
Tied to Gaza, the deprogramming came for me when I heard people that I've known for years, 10 or 15 years, saying, justifying the murder of children and saying that they were terrorists. And I go, well, that doesn't make sense, because I know people from these countries. I've traveled to the Middle East after the Marine Corps, and I've met people from these countries who lived through what we delivered to them, the policies pushed on. And so when you start to learn that there's a trend of three-letter agencies and then our foreign policy from key Jewish economists like Jeffrey Sachs or
yeah, like, okay, so what? This is what I was waiting for. Like, the idea that this is supposed... The problem here, again, is, like, because when you take this particular version, then there's this idea that somehow this Jewish lobby has this outsized power. But the problem is, the arms industry and the oil and gas industry could buy and sell this lobby with no sweat. I mean, we're talking about hundreds of billions of dollars industries and a lobby that's worth like $9 billion. Like, it would not, it would be no contest. So you really, so if you're going to try to explain why you think that it is down to this lobby, and then you start, oh, Jewish economists, it's like, well, are they saying something fundamentally different from what all the other fucking capitalist economists are? And the answer is no. They're not. They're absolutely not. But this is the sort of direction that this all goes in.
People I wouldn't have listened to before, but when I started seeing someone was justifying the murder of children, and I saw a Democratic president and a Republican president both justifying it, I was, and it forced me from my upbringing as a child to meeting people and becoming friends from all these countries. And in the
Like, yeah, do you genuinely think this is the first time that happened, though? Like, what? Okay, this guy. Okay, like, this is a fairly young guy. He probably was not in the Marines at the time that the U.S. was committing a massacre in Fallujah that bears a lot of similarity to what we're seeing in Gaza, to the extent that you could actually say that Israel is using Fallujah as a model. Like, none of this stuff is actually new. What's new is how visible it is. What's new is how completely in your face it is. But, like, justifying the mass murder of children is, like, that's just U.S. foreign policy 101.
People in boot camp, they play the 9/11 towers over and over again. They knock down and they say, when they tire you out during something called Crucible, and they say, people want to kill you. So they have that whole programming set up to make you not question it. But if you're someone like me who started questioning things even more, all of the years of compressed upbringing from childhood to adulthood, your own moral compass, with meeting and becoming friends with people from these countries, Palestinians, Libyans, right, Iranians, people from Yemen, you start to question the very structure that you were taught to support, and then when your own personal viewpoints.
Yeah, but I mean, what's interesting is, like, he talks about questioning the structure, but the minute he starts talking about his explanation of what's going on, it avoids actually questioning the structure.
Going from being, well, yeah, I'm why I thought I should be pro-Israel, to, wait, no, that's really fucked up, and Palestinians have more in common with Americans. Part of my language, I know viewers don't like to hear the slur. It's the only way I know how to describe the situation. When you realize how similar.
Yeah, but I mean, have more in common with which Americans, though? Like, that's the thing. And which Palestinians? Like, fucking Mahmoud Abbas, Abu Talezi, he's a Palestinian too. That Yosef Haddad, he's a Palestinian too. I mean, fucking traitors, both of them. But they're Palestinians. Like, I mean, trying to flatten this out like that. And which Americans? Like, I mean, fucking Netanyahu himself is an American. He's from Philly. Like, I mean, this sort of thinking, it's like, it's sort of, it does an amazing job of almost getting to the point and just swerving away from it in the last minute.
The histories between Palestinians and Americans, both dealing with the British problem, and then you understand the background.
The British problem, the U.S. is the British problem. That, I mean, see, this is just a wild view of U.S. history, because it's not like the U.S. was here and we were all having a great time and the Brits showed up and fucked it all up. This isn't Ireland, okay? This isn't India. Like, the people who were pissed off at the Brits and kicked them out of part of North America were themselves the Brits. They were also colonizing the place. They just didn't like the way that their bosses in London were telling them to do it.
An illegal immigrant population that was expelled from Europe was thrust onto the Middle East. And it was a legalized form of illegal immigration that created all this chaos.
Well, I mean, it's worth noting, first of all, I mean, he's talking about, first of all, a legalized form of illegal immigration is a bit interesting because, like, I mean, to the extent that illegal immigration is a meaningful term, yes, like literally, if you legalize it, then it becomes legal. So it is just immigration. But like, this seems like a really weird way to avoid just talking about colonization.
And you realize the same issues in your country are because of the same type of random military policy that doesn't take into account the people of the region. It's causing not only the extra...
Well, yeah, but there's more to it than that. Because the reason there were, like, lots of people who were willing to, like, join the Zionist colony is precisely because because people like them were actually in a fair bit of danger in Europe at the time. Like, a big part of why Zionism is popular in Europe is precisely because it gives anti-Semites a way, an escape valve. Like, they don't want to have Jewish neighbors, but if you don't want to have Jewish neighbors, you have to find a place to put them. And Zionism gives you a place to put them. Like, so, yeah, I mean, in that sense, and so... It isn't like these were people who were just, like, fine where they were, and it wasn't... What it comes down to is European powers did not want to treat Jews better, so they wanted to get rid of them, and Zionism gave them an outlet.
Problems with the idea of possible terrorism in your country, the only course of action for you to do is to deprogram yourself. The evidence is so obvious that here's the first example. The first protest that happened, I went to both protests. I went to the pro-Israel protest and I went to the pro-Palestinian protest to see what I wanted to hear what they were saying before I made a decision on who I would support.
Like, I mean, is he talking about during the current genocide, or when is this? Like, that is such an odd way of talking, the idea, like, okay, I haven't decided which side I'm on, I'm going to just go to both protests, and whichever protest I like better, I guess that's the side I'm on now? Like, I didn't know that it worked that way.
I mean, when I heard things like, they're bribing kids with $250 Starbucks gift cards, I went there and I saw them handing it out. And I asked, the first question I asked is, so, what do you know about the Middle East?
That's like the first time I've heard that.
Half the people there were supporting it just there for the gift cards. Then I went to the pro-Palestinian protest.
And now I'm curious about this, because I feel like I would have heard about this. It seems like the sort of thing that would have been very widely talked about, except pro-Israel, I'm going to just look this up. Pro-Israel protest, Starbucks gift cards. I'm not seeing anything about this. This is weird. I mean, I just did a Google search because I figured somebody would have written something about this. There's plenty of stuff about, like, Starbucks in Israel because of their support for the IDF. And they're, like, trying, and their attempts to crush their union because the union took a pro-Palestinian stance. Yeah, just gonna check the vibes at this protest. Genocide, it's one of those things. Maybe that's how ContraPoints did it, and she didn't like the vibes at either protest, and she was like, okay, I'm gonna take a third way.
Reasonable people talking about, okay, Cocaine, for example, right, has a pretty balanced organization of people. As a spoken person in the media engine, and right, then eventually I got to meet and speak with him very briefly, and to hear his perspective, I started realizing that I was realigning naturally because of what I was told to believe, what I saw in front of my eyes, and that was what I was trying to trust the evidence. In the Marine Corps, they say a key phrase: attention to detail. Mm-hmm. So imagine if I didn't know how to polish my rings, look for good with white gloves. What do you think I did with the history books? When I went back through all opposing history books, and I started reading through Reddit forums, I started compiling a paper to go, well, what's the history book?
Okay, so what he's saying here, I guess this isn't just like now. This is a while ago. Okay, that makes a bit more sense. Because, I mean, I can tell you, like, what got me to start questioning the sort of reflexive, knee-jerk Zionism that I was steeped in just because I'm from the U.S., and it's just the default ideology on this stuff, was I was already like questioning basically everything else, and I was reading Zed magazine, and I remember there was an article that said something like, it was like human rights in Israel, and it's like I was completely I was floored by this, because at the time, and we're talking like the 90s, okay, a long time ago, it's like I didn't know there was any human rights shit in Israel, like and so I read it, and it's like, oh, holy shit, okay, that's fucked. But it was like the very first time I had ever heard anything that led me to question any of it. And my own tendency was to go down rabbit holes. If something was leading me to question something I was being told, I wanted to know more about it. And so I did, and here I am now. So, like, that isn't okay. If that is, like, how he started out, and he just sort of, his first encounter with, like, pro-Palestine people made him think that maybe actually we're not fucking, you know, horned toilet monsters or something, then okay, I guess that's something that makes a bit more sense than what it sounded like for a minute.
Right? I have friends from Lebanon. And when you hear about massacres of Sabra and Shakira, and, you know, I've flown out recently, met people who have keys to their own homes, and you start to think about how these problems culminate. And when we're talking here in America, we start to think to yourself, no, why am I thinking, why do I still feel this urge to support these people when, in fact, they're the aggressors? And then I think to myself, as an American, I go, well, if I was a Palestinian, and someone came to me and told me half my land was going to go to these people I'd never met before. Some people you even welcome in their home. I have a friend, a close Palestinian friend of mine, who her family welcomed in Ashkenazi refugees. And they were booted out of their home and locked out. And so, when you hear this, I would say, well, what would I do if I was an American? God, what country? Have the courage to commit Own your values. Have the courage to fight back against this, and have the commitment to tell politicians and talk about getting laws that are not aligned with the principles of the Constitution.
I mean, what's interesting, I have to say, I wasn't sure who this was going to be. I thought we were going to be, because there's so many extremely dodgy people. I mean, we're kind of wrapping up at this point. I noticed the time. So, like, this isn't like somebody I was expecting it to be. This wasn't somebody I'd heard of. And I get the impression he is pulling on a bunch of threads that are actually making bits of his worldview make less and less sense to him. And he's trying to somehow keep it together. This isn't, I thought we were talking about, like, it was going to be, like, one of these, like, fucking Allison Weir type people who, her group, If Americans Knew, if you ever see it, she is dodgy as hell. She is a white nationalist who has openly acknowledged, like, CIA and NSA ties. It's amazing how many, like, the dodgiest fash people are, like, ex-CIA and NSA, just openly, it's right on their LinkedIn and shit. But, so, okay, this guy seems like he's actually sort of pulling on threads, and it's actually making his worldview make less and less sense, and he's still trying, but it hasn't actually all collapsed. So I'm not sure, but the fundamental idea here, I mean, this is the idea that we should be expending effort to reach the right is just nonsense. Like, numerically, there are much larger groups. There are groups that are much more likely to be on side because they have a personal interest than right-wingers, who are going to tend to be people who overwhelmingly are doing reasonably well with the status quo. That's usually why people are supporters of it. So, I mean, that's just such a nonsense idea to me. It was a nonsense idea when Xander Hole was pushing it. It's still a nonsense idea. Like, some right-wingers will sort of come to us of their own accord because they've started to realize their ideology sucks shit and ours makes more sense. And that's a good thing. We shouldn't immediately trust everything about them and give them leadership positions and stuff like that. And because some of them will turn out to be Xander holes. But we also should not be trying to bend over backwards to find more right-wingers. Like, there are so many other communities, the much larger demographics, that will be much more likely to be on side with what we're actually trying to do, that the idea that we should try to, reshape ourselves in order to be more attractive to reactionaries, it's just bullshit. It's just a bad idea, and it's based on shitty maths. And I always have a little bit of suspicion of anyone who's pushing it too hard, because have they ever really considered what that means? Like, that you don't... Like, I mean, it's the same thing that the Democrats were doing this in this last campaign, where they were like, okay, what we're going to do is we're going to win over the moderate white nationalists. Wait, what? You think that might cause some of our, core voters to stay away? No, that's not going to be. They're going to be cool. Just because we're doing the white nationalism thing doesn't mean that it's going to, that you are going to alienate voters of color and queer people and everything. And, of course, it doesn't work out like that. But it is time to wrap up, and so I'm just going to say thank you for joining in. I hope you enjoyed the stream, and I will be back on Friday at 11:30 p.m. U.S. Eastern Time, where the Last JabroniCon will resume. Have a good night. Have a good week. And thank you, everyone, for watching and supporting and joining in the chat and stuff.